It's over July 4th weekend.
Oh, so we'll be here.
Yeah. If we were to play in Chicago, just as like a reunion game for the machine,
Which isn't actually our team.
I understand that. But just pretend like it was. And we went back and we played in Chicago. And on July 4th weekend, we could be a part of the Grateful Dead last show. That would be amazing.
Instead, we're going to be here at Selby,
Still amazing.
and you can listen to the Grateful Dead that we can play over the loudspeakers.
True. If we could pipe it in live from Chicago,
Well,
that
I'm
would
not
be
sure.
amazing.
Chicago's an hour behind us. So unless their concert starts at 3 p.m.,
Well, the concert actually goes on the the third, fourth, and fifth. It's pretty much like an extravaganza.
so they're going to play like nonstop.
I don't know.
At the end, are they going to be the Grateful Dead?
Possibly. I mean, I'm not even sure any of the guys are still alive that are playing.
It's like now if Guns N' Roses has a show, didn't one of them just pass away?
That was false.
Was it?
False. Yeah, false statement.
Was it all because they didn't show up to a show like they always don't do?
That's just basically Axel. He does what he wants. But Axel will not be playing with the Grateful Dead.
Or maybe he is.
No, it's actually Trey from Fish who is sitting in for Jerry Garcia.
All right.
It's kind of a controversial call. I don't know who else would sit in and play for him.
I don't think you really can. Like,
You can't. The only other person I could see that they could have got was they could have got Willie Nelson, who is also might be dead.
I saw Willie Nelson in concert in 2009 at Fenway. He played with Dave Matthews.
Well, he's played with everyone. So I figured, if you're going to get anybody, you can put Willie in there, and no one ever complains about Willie playing sitting in. Like he just sits in with anybody he wants.
You know what Willie Nelson should do? He should sit at our draft table on Friday night and make our picks for us.
Well, that would be amazing.
Have you noticed that since we started doing this podcast again, we really talk music for the beginning, and hopefully our 3 listeners enjoy it, and then we finally get into lacrosse about 5-6 minutes into it?
Well, maybe it's our thing. It's
it
my
is.
warm up. It's my warm up.
It is. We just got to get talking a little bit. We'll officially welcome everyone to the Nuts and Bolts podcast, sponsored by, if you're listening, we need a sponsor, so your company could have their name in flashy lights right across the front. I'm your host, Noah Sharfman. I'm joined, as always, or as usual, by Machine Vice President Bear Davis. Coach, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Noah.
I know that you kept giving me a little stink eye look when I told you we had to do this in the office because I'm pulling you away from draft prep. By the time you're listening to this, the draft's hours away, potentially days away. We'll see when I post this. But 2015 MLL Collegiate Draft is coming up. How are things looking so far for the team?
I think we're sitting pretty good. This is probably, as far as our current roster, the most balanced we have been since, our staff has been here. Looking at the roster, we have positioned ourselves to be to take the best available player, we believe, in the 4th round. No real huge need at any one given position. You can always upgrade, but we feel like that upgrade will probably be best at the best available player at 27. It's not like we're chasing a certain position at this point. So the downside is we don't have a pick in the first three rounds. The upside is we have Brian Carolinus and Steve Waldeck and Kyle Harrison because we don't have a pick in the first 3 rounds, and in the 4th round we could take the best available college player.
So for some of our fans, they might have been accustomed to us picking really, really high in the draft. Our first ever pick was number 2 overall. We took Steele. Second pick in the second draft we had the first overall pick, and we took Peter Baum. Then last year we also had the first overall pick and took Tommy Schreiber. We were sitting at 5 at the end of the season, and you alluded to it. We made a deal where we brought in Brian Carolinus. We sent Chad Wiedmeyer to Boston and also the 5th overall pick to Boston. What do you look at when you're evaluating that kind of trade and giving up the 5th pick, but also what we're bringing in with Carolinus?
Well, it's always tough to get, to trade a player. That's always different than a pick because, you don't have a relationship with a pick, but we traded Chad, who's been a big part of our defense, to Boston where, but in our mind, it was a matter of we weren't sure that anybody at the fifth pick was going to bring to the table what a three-time All-Star defenseman like Brian Karolinus brings to the table. He's a proven player in the league, and that's always a tough question mark with the college draft. Is that you don't they can look great on paper and even on film, but if you can get a for sure thing, I think you grab onto it. And BK's great. He's a great locker room guy. From everything that we've heard, I know he's going to be a great addition to our roster. So we have packaged that situation up so we feel like we made our team better. I think that's what your constant goal is, to improve your roster, and with that move, that's what we felt like we did.
So one of the things that's a little bit different than other sports that our fans might see is you see something like the movie Draft Day with the Cleveland Browns, and the whole process there, all their scouts were together, their whole front office. It seems like months and months of just research and even years of watching these players. With our coaching staff spread out across the country, you're here, Coach Marzano's here, Coach Wolford's here, but then we have Coach Mariano, who's in New York, working another full-time job. What's the preparation like amongst the staff to get us ready for our draft here?
Well, for us, I think Coach Mariano and myself, the creation of Google Docs has been amazing. Even when I was coaching collegiately, it was always tough to kind of keep up on your recruiting documentation, and then recruiting software came out, and then you had these Google Docs that came out, which is amazing because you just share documents. So our notes, and of course we have our phone calls, but that has really helped us keep organized in this draft so far. And also Coach Marzano has done a great job of keeping profiles together on guys and getting that list, creating that list just through doing some research for us. So everyone's had a hand, in the success of the draft.
When you look at the draft, and we'll talk about the success that our teams had throughout the collegiate draft in a little bit here, but I want to touch on sometimes you don't get a player. How do you keep looking at him and following him throughout his career or just his journey? Because you then look at the supplemental draft, and we've had a couple guys that we might have targeted in the collegiate draft, didn't get, and then picked up in the supplemental draft. Ty Sodders is a name that comes to mind from this past year. What do you guys do as coaches to keep up with those players?
Well, I think with us, you definitely you say the name so many times, and it just sticks in your head after a while. Then you follow them, and then if they become available and there's a spot where you can, there must have been something that you initially liked about them. So if you get that opportunity to get them in training camp and see if they fit, you want to do that. Probably because you're just more familiar with them. We did like Souders out of college, and it didn't wind up that he was on our roster, and now we get a shot to bring him into the supplemental draft. And we have a certain style and a certain way we want to play. So finding that pool of guys is the first thing, and then if they don't end up on your roster, it's like track them down a little bit. If they become available, snag them up, see if they fit.
Throughout the draft, I mentioned the names that everyone knows. The Stanwicks, Bombs. It even goes into the second round that we've had really good luck in. What makes somebody a first-round pick versus a second, third, or even late seventh-round pick?
I think that's the quandrum with all levels, and probably even the people that cover our draft and try to do the analysis. It's so hard because you're not in those team meetings. You don't know exactly where the team is, as far as like mentally, physically, and for us, it's a timing of the draft, like best available player versus what your needs are, and sometimes those don't match up. Then you have to take that gamble, or if you're willing to take that gamble, do we fill that need, with a guy right now, knowing that no one else in the room wants that guy, and then he may slide down to you might be able to pick him up in later rounds and get a best possible available player at another position where maybe it's not as high of a need for you. So you're always teetering with that question at times, and and I think that's what's tough, because if you do take that gamble where you think the guy that you really need will be available later, and you can get some other guys, then you do that. But then there's that one time where he does get picked up, and you're like, damn, that's the guy we really wanted. So why mess around? There's the other school of thought is, why mess around? Why do we care who everybody else in the room wants? We'll just go in and get what the guys that we need. And so I think those are always the balance question that you ask yourself going into the draft.
I had a question, and now I can't think of it.
I can't answer that question.
So I'll. You don't say. What do you think about the question I was about to ask you?
Oh, well, that's deep.
So our fans might be a little worried that we have the 27th pick in the draft. You have a couple forfeited picks, but we're picking in the 4th round. It's our first pick. When you look at last year's All-Star game between Team USA and the MLL All-Stars, did a little research here. There were 17 out of, I believe, 33 players that were picked in the 4th round later, or entirely went undrafted. What makes a player slip, and or what makes a player go undrafted and then become an all-star in this league?
Individual work ethic is it's probably one of the most underrated skill sets that come into this league. There are just guys that are naturally talented in college. They have a strength and conditioning coach. They have the assistant coach. They have everybody that's prodding them to get it done. And of course they have their natural ability, but they're used to a regiment that is kind of mapped out for them. Well, there's no map. These guys are on their own. They have to be self-disciplined. They have to train like madmen, and what happens is guys will either move themselves up in this league or bump themselves down. Sometimes those guys that get drafted in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds or whatever, they come in with a little chip on their shoulder, and they're hard workers. They're blue collar. They get after it. They train. They want to prove themselves to be in this league. And then their skill sets they may go up, whereas someone gets drafted early might be one of those guys that just needed the prodding in college to train and do the extra work, and then when they get out on their own, maybe that motivation isn't there. Or sometimes guys get jobs too that just don't allow that flexibility, or it gets kind of tough for them. So yeah, I think that's why in the league you can see guys really flourish or tank, and most of it, I would say, goes right back onto what their self-motivation is to be successful in the league.
This is the first draft that you have done, the collegiate draft, I should say, where you're kind of running the show from the lacrosse operations side. How has that changed anything, if it has changed anything, from when you were just serving as the head coach previously?
We've probably a lot more of the research has been put on our staff, where prior when John Alge was the general manager and president, he would do a lot of legwork for us, as we both had or all of us had full-time jobs doing something else, and and he had a nice system, and at least showed us through last year's draft on some of the things that he did research wise, and put us in a pretty good situation to formulate our own plan, for this draft. So we feel pretty good about it. And, like I said, it's just a lot more time invested on our side.
All right, this is the point in the podcast where I know all the other GMs and coaches are listening that I'm going to kindly ask them to turn off the podcast so we can ask this question. Coach, if there is a sleeper that we're looking at last pick of the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, that you think can make a difference in this league, who is it?
Oh, wow. For us, we tried to, in that last couple rounds, our goal is to really look at if there's any local talent or regional talent that is out there. And it's been kind of fun to see some of the guys that you normally probably wouldn't spend a lot of time looking at, just because maybe their name hasn't been floating out there quite as much or at the top. But I think there's some real good talent that is homegrown, in the Ohio Midwest region here that we've been looking at. You got a kid like the Bernie kid up at Detroit Mercy. I mean, this kid's shooting the ball 115 miles per hour. I mean, he's that's just special. I don't care who you are. That's a pretty interesting stat on him that you can't deny. And he's a D midi, and so I think. I don't know where I guess if you're going to take someone that might be Mr. Irrelevant, if he has a 115 mile per hour shot, I guess you can live with that, So there's some things that we've been looking at for sure.
Is a 115 mile an hour shot the equivalent of Ricky Vaughn from Major League, where you think he can blow by you, but every third shot is just going to hit the batter and walk him to first?
Well, again, that's probably why at this point he's being more looked at as Mr. Irrelevant than a first round draft pick in the collegiate draft by all the GMs. But there's so many variables. I mean, I'm sure he's a great kid. It's just the schedule that Detroit Mercy plays and a lot of teams. It's a little different than the ACC schedules, and you want guys that are going to be a little bit more. Be able to finish their season and walk out and play for you. And not saying that he couldn't, but the prep leading into it is a little bit different than the ACC and schools like that.
So I got one question that hopefully will help all the players being drafted this week and all the players not drafted that hope to play in the league, help them take that next step. You've been a coach in the league for 2 years now. You've seen the player development. What's the biggest thing that helps a player from his first practice after his college season to dressing for the first time to making an impact for the first time? If you were to give advice to a rookie, what advice would that be?
I tell them to make sure that they're doing all their work. Watch film. See how the flow of the game goes. Be as dynamic as you possibly can. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're only limited to one skill set. A 19-man roster. You look at a guy like Jake Bernhardt, who had played man up for us, has taken face-offs, playing the O midi, played D midi, played transition midi. He's been on wings on face-offs. The guy's done everything possible. And what happens is it just makes it where he's so valuable for us, in so many different ways. He's a guy we have to have. We feel that strongly about his abilities. But it's all because he's versatile and he's willing to work and he's willing to learn. I think that's the best, one of the best advices I can give. And I'd say just try to, write GMs, write people, let them know about you. There's so many guys out there, that it's just difficult. I think some of these college coaches have done a tremendous job of promoting their top talent, and some coaches, have not. Some coaches just have not reached out at all, and I think that's, unfortunately, that's where our league and the relationship with the college coaches currently is. But I think it's getting better. I think it was better this year than it was last year. It's a busy time of the year for college coaches getting ready for their first games too. But I don't think it takes a lot. They're already clipping stuff up anyways. I don't think it takes a whole lot to clip up some things and send it out to 8 GMs, and promote your guys.
So I'm going to let you get back to the draft stuff, all that work, in addition to our ticket sales operations that I know you're working on with all the groups and your coach's Chalk Talk that's coming up on Thursday the 29th at Actual Brewing. Speaking of brewing, I have one final question for you, and we'll end it on a light note, possibly a dark note. We had Monday off with Martin Luther King Day, and I know you got into a little home brewing. Why don't you tell all our fans how I'm sure what will be named the Oil Up beer is coming along?
Yes, so my community has a group of guys that will do some brewing, and we took advantage of the nice day on Martin Luther King Day there on Monday, and we put together a 5-gallon stout, Imperial Stout. Should be ready for the season, and that will be somewhere in the realm of oil up beer. I'm sure that the neighborhood will enjoy during our home games, or all of our games, I guess, as they're sitting around watching the games. So, yeah, just a little fun hobby, just a bunch of guys hanging out.
Well, I'm going to take you up on the offer that if there were subtitles was just there, where you said the next podcast should definitely be over an oil up beer. So, Coach, until next time, appreciate you stopping by. Appreciate our 3 listeners out there, maybe 4 this time. We'll see how big of an audience we're able to generate here.
I think this conversation that we just had definitely should get up to at least 9. I think 9 people will definitely listen to this.
Well, your wife, your 3 kids, my family. I mean, we're there. We're pushing it. I'm a big family.
A little credit if you think my wife's actually going to listen to this. She listens to me way too much already.
Well, I was hoping she was listening for me.
Oh,
I mean,
that's a good point.
Marissa really does like me. Always invited to dinner.
Mikey Berendino. We should end this podcast with a little Beastie Boys for him. I know he listens.
Oh, Beastie Boys.
Yeah, we could end
that would be a tough reunion concert for me to see right now. It wouldn't be so much of a reunion. Someone would have to step in.
Yeah. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
All right, well, until next time, Coach, appreciate it. This has been the Nuts and Bolts podcast. We will see you guys later.
Time to oil up.
We check athletes from head to toe before the season starts to make sure you don't hit the wall when it matters most. Teaming up with coaches, athletic trainers, and physicians to keep athletes healthy. Helping you avoid injury and recover quickly to keep you in the game.
OSU Sports Medicine.
The official sports medicine provider of the Ohio Machine and athletes everywhere.